Steve. How you feeling?
Feeling good, Bob. I hope you are.
All right, man. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you and the family. The Shane Baz trade that came down late last week, stunner for sure. Compensation plentiful. Steve, you follow the Orioles minor leagues as closely as anyone, and we don't know. Shane Baz could win the Cy Young, or he could turn out to be Charlie Morton 2.0. I don't think that's going to happen, but you get the point. What about the compensation that goes to Tampa in return for what sort of upside from a former first-round draft pick in Baz himself?
I mean, they gave up a huge price, I think, for 3 years of control. And it seems like the industry's opinion on Shane Baz, as well as the ERA, was below league average last year. The stuff can be elite. He can hit 100. He's got a curveball that can be big swing and miss. And I think they see, as the Tampa Bay GM said, his best years ahead. They weren't looking to move him, and it took that haul of prospects to get him. And so I'm really high on Michael Ferret. I really, really liked him as a pitching prospect. And so I think all four of those players had to be hard to part with, plus a draft pick. I mean, that's a haul, Bob.
Now, we know that they were also kind of sniffing around at least one other trade. The one that got reported out there was that they had heavy interest in Mackenzie Gore. And that was sort of at the winter meetings, and that's kind of died down a little bit. This whole offseason, we've been saying they need two prominent pitching moves. They got the one here with Baz. It seems like everyone's still pretty locked in on them potentially getting Framber Valdez or Suarez from Philly. But do you think that another trade could be their other big addition? And do they have the ammo still to get another pitcher through that route and maybe even a better one than Baz?
I mean, another trade could be coming, but if you're aiming being better than Baz, then you're going further up that list of prospects. Now you're bringing, Basayo into the mix. Mayo. We'll see. It seems to work better to have another big signing, right, and keep the remaining prospects. And the Orioles are said to be in the hunt for these guys, and Elias has said we could afford two big contracts. So they've afforded one, and we'll see if they get another one. And, when they made those trades last year at the deadline, and you guys interviewed me, and I said, the one thing I'm hearing from fans about these deadline trades is how are they going to help them win next year? And I pointed out repeatedly that you can trade those guys to get a player to help you win next year. Now, while they didn't trade a single player they acquired in those deadline deals, what the deadline deals did is deepen the farm to lessen the impact of a big trade like this. So I think, in essence, they did add players at the deadline to help them win this year. And that is where the Shane Baz acquisition comes into play.
Go back to the Alonso signing real quick, and I guess the impact it'll have. I mean, on the surface, it's obvious. You any chance you can get that kind of bat in your lineup, you take it. But he's an everyday first baseman in the literal sense of every day. I mean, he'll play 162, and he'll only DH in that time maybe once, twice, three times in a season. So if he's locked in at first, we've got hopes for Adley to reestablish himself as the starting everyday catcher. That leaves a Sam Basayo then seemingly to be DHing most of the time. Is that a concern for you at all to have such a young guy already relegated to being an everyday DH? Or do you think they can get creative and have him play the field a little more?
I mean, he can play some first base. You're right. I mean, if Alonso's there a lot, that's less opportunities, and that already impacts two players on that roster, and Mountie and Mayo, and Basayo's a third. And so, but I think if you catch him a third of the time and you DH first base him some more of the time, you can get that bat out there enough. Because I think you have to get his bat out there. I mean, he just, they sign him to the deal. There's no reason to send him back to the farm. It's time for him to play. So the Orioles do have to sort all this out, man. They've got more good hitters than they used to have as of, a month ago. So they got to sort all this out.
Steve Melewski talking Orioles with him, Bob Haynie, Nolan McGraw here on this Turn It Up Tuesday. Steve, last thing for you. We talk about all these good hitters. We thought that Hester Kjerstad was going to be one of them, and it looked like he was on his way to becoming an asset offensively. Haven't really heard much about him at all. What's the status report on Heston, and is there going to be a stun level if he's on that opening day roster when they open the season in 26 in March?
Probably so. I mean, he's just got to resurrect his career, and how quickly he can do that and where the opportunity will be. We just don't know those answers today. And I mean, Bob, the Orioles reached a point where they could not count on some of these kids to win in 2026, and Heston is certainly one of those. You just couldn't go into the season saying, well, he'll be our right fielder. I know he's had all these injuries and setbacks, but he'll start hitting and playing every day. You just couldn't say that. And so, thus they brought in these other players. And I mean, even some of the young guys who have thrived are squeezed a little bit here by all these moves. Dylan Beavers, is his role getting lessened? I hope not. I mean, I thought he looked really, really good and is a shining example of the Orioles player development. So we're going to see how they sort it out, man. It's not dull in Birdland, Bob. We knew that when the winter started because they were going to have to make some moves. And now that they've made moves, it has ramifications, and there are more moves coming for sure. And this roster that we're talking about today could look a little different, or maybe in some ways very different when they go to Sarasota. So don't change that dial, man, because something could be popping any time. And it's interesting again in Birdland, which I think is exciting for the fans and even for the media guys who do this every day.
100%. Steve Melewski, what's going on in your media world as we're heading up on Christmas and people want to follow you and get caught up on the Orioles stuff?
Well, Bob, I still got it humming on my Substack, steveonbaseball.substack.com. I've had a lot of great podcast guests recently. And, I tell you, a podcast fan should listen to that. This kid's really fun to talk with. Last week I had Ethan Anderson, the catcher they drafted out of UVA a couple years ago, on my podcast, and he really, really got into how they try to make players better on the farm and how he's trying to get better and dealing with the ups and downs. He was very good in the Arizona Fall League this year, and so I enjoy talking to these minor league kids and finding out what makes them tick. And so steveonbaseball.substack.com, you'll find that podcast and more.
Steve, have a great Christmas. Happy holidays, you and the family, and we'll talk to you next year.
You got it, guys. Merry Christmas. See you soon.
There's Steve Melewski, everybody.